Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex ideas, pull out the key insights, and really connect them to your world. And today, we're diving into a really powerful piece of ancient text, the 26th chapter of the book of Job. This isn't just, an old story. It speaks volumes about humility, about awe, and just the sheer scale of the universe. It's quite something. So for this deep dive, we've got the biblical text itself, naturally, but also some great analysis looking at its timeless wisdom and how it surprisingly applies today. Our mission really is to grab those profound nuggets about God's sovereignty, his absolute control, and see how these ancient truths can genuinely encourage obedience and, maybe more importantly, strengthen your faith right now.
It's fascinating, the setup here. Job's suffering, his friends are giving him advice he sees as, well, frankly, unhelpful. But instead of just defending himself more, he shifts completely. He launches into this breathtaking declaration of God's power. It's quite a moment of real insight, even though he's right in the middle of his own pain. It's a pivot from, personal agony to this universal perspective.
That pivot is so key, isn't it? He actually starts chapter 26 with a bit of sharp sarcasm. He asks things like, how have you helped the powerless? How have you saved the arm that has no strength? How have you counseled the one without wisdom? He's basically saying, your advice, pretty useless. It's quite blunt.
Oh, definitely. A clear dismissal of those, well, shallow attempts to explain everything. But then, almost in the next breath, he moves past that. He starts this incredible reflection on God's dominion over, well, everything.
From the human drama straight to the divine majesty.
Exactly. And he paints this incredibly vivid picture, starting right down at the foundations of existence, places they couldn't even properly imagine. He says, dead things are formed from under the waters, and the inhabitants thereof. Think about that. The deep ocean. Totally unknown, kind of scary back then. Yet Job says even there, life is formed under God's power. It shows his authority over life, death, the unseen.
And he doesn't just stop with the physical deeps. He goes spiritual too, right?
He does. Right away he says, hell is naked before him and destruction hath no covering. Sheol, abandon these concepts.
Wow. So what's that telling us?
It's powerful. It means even those hidden realms, the place of the dead, the forces of destruction we might think of as chaotic, they're completely exposed to God. Totally transparent. Nothing is hidden. There's no corner of existence, seen or unseen, outside his awareness or his control.
That really sets the stage, an all-encompassing sovereignty.
Absolutely. Over life, death, and everything beyond what we can, physically touch or see. Even the scary stuff.
Okay, now this is where, for me, it gets really mind-bending, especially thinking about ancient views of the world. Job says, God, he stretcheth out the north over the empty place and hangeth the earth upon nothing. Wait, hanging the earth on nothing. How radical was that idea back then?
Oh, it was utterly radical. You have to remember, most cosmologies then involved, the earth sitting on pillars, maybe on a giant turtle or floating on a cosmic sea. The sky was often seen as a solid dome. So to say God hangs the earth on nothing, it's staggering. It's this hint of the earth suspended freely in space, thousands of years before science caught up.
Just incredible. It suggests an insight beyond just human observation.
It really does. It paints this picture of effortless, immense power. God doesn't need pillars.
And then he brings it back down sort of to the elements, things they could see and experience. He says, he bindeth up the waters in his thick clouds, and the cloud is not rent under them. You think about a massive storm cloud, the weight of that water.
Exactly. And yet it holds.
Yeah.
It doesn't just burst apart. It points to God's control over the very mechanics of the atmosphere.
And also how God hath compassed the waters with bounds until the day and night come to an end, setting limits for the oceans.
Yes, the idea of boundaries, of order. The sea stays within its limits. It speaks to the reliable laws of nature God set up. It's not chaos. It's a carefully managed system. And it does make you wonder, how often do we just take that stability for granted? Job attributes it directly to God's active power.
That's a really good point. We just assume the sun will rise, the tides will work.
Right. Job doesn't make that assumption. He sees God's hand constantly at work.
And he keeps going, describing how even the symbolic foundations of reality respond to God. The pillars of heaven tremble and are astonished at his reproof.
Yeah.
It's not just physical power, is it? It's an authority that resonates through the very cosmos.
Exactly. It implies even celestial structures, or perhaps angelic powers represented by them, are awestruck by God's correction or command.
And then he divideth the sea with his power, and by his understanding he smiteth through the proud. That sounds like raw force.
It does. It evokes maybe the Red Sea crossing, or perhaps those ancient Near Eastern myths of battling sea monsters, symbols of chaos. Either way, it's God overcoming what seems overwhelming, what seems defiant. The proud could be rebellious forces, human or otherwise.
And then this line, by his spirit he hath garnished the heavens, his hand hath formed the crooked serpent. What's going on there? The heavens, then. A serpent.
It's a fascinating juxtaposition, isn't it? Garnish the heavens speaks of beauty, order, divine artistry, perhaps the stars, the constellations. Then his hand hath formed the crooked serpent. Now that serpent, it's debated. Could be a constellation like Draco. Could be a symbol of chaos like Leviathan. Could even represent evil.
But the point is, God formed it, even that.
Precisely. That's the key insight. Whatever this powerful, perhaps chaotic, or even menacing serpent represents, it's still part of God's creation under his ultimate control. He shapes everything, the beautiful, the orderly, and the enigmatic or challenging. Nothing exists outside his power or his purpose.
So after painting this absolutely immense picture, where does Job land? What's the takeaway for him?
He lands in a place of profound humility. He says, "Lo, these are parts of his ways, but how little a portion is heard of him. But the thunder of his power who can understand." It's like he's saying, look, all this incredible stuff I just described, the earth hanging on nothing, the sea boundaries, the heavens, the serpent, that's just the fringe, the outer edge, a faint whisper of his real power. We're barely scratching the surface.
Wow, just a whisper. That puts things in perspective.
It really does. And that leads us straight into the ancient wisdom embedded here, wisdom that's still so relevant. First point, true wisdom knows its limits. Job's humility isn't weakness, it's profound strength. He sees God's power, but admits he can't fully grasp it, how little a portion is heard of him. That's key. Accepting mystery actually builds trust. It frees us from thinking we have to understand everything.
Which is kind of liberating, actually.
It is. And this acceptance strengthens faith, because it encourages obedience based on trust in a higher wisdom, not just on our limited understanding.
That makes sense. It reminds me, even in science, the biggest leaps often come from admitting what we don't know.
Exactly the same principle,
Yeah.
a teachable spirit. Second point, creation shouts God's power. Job uses nature, the clouds, the sea, the heavens, to show God's design and control. The world isn't just, stuff. It's a witness. Seeing God's fingerprints everywhere, from the cosmos to his single cell, well, that inspires awe.
And maybe responsibility, too.
Yes, definitely. A sense of reverence for the Creator, which naturally shapes how we live, how we obey.
Okay, and the third piece of ancient wisdom.
Reverence beats speculation. Look at Job compared to his friends. They try to analyze and explain his suffering with neat little theories. Job, facing the immensity of God, chooses awe. He doesn't demand answers. He reveres. In tough times, worship can be a deeper, wiser path than endless questioning.
So instead of trying to figure it all out,
Yeah.
stand in awe.
Exactly. It strengthens faith by shifting focus from our need for control to God's infinite capacity. It fosters surrender, trust, and obedience, even in mystery.
Okay, so that's the ancient wisdom, powerful stuff. But how does this land for us, in the 21st century? What are the modern applications?
Great question, because it absolutely lands today. First, practice intellectual humility. Our world loves experts, demands answers, prizes certainty. Job reminds us, it's okay, actually, it's wise to say, I don't know, about aspects of faith, about life's complexities, even about scientific frontiers.
That's hard to do sometimes. We feel pressure to have an opinion on everything.
We do, but admitting limits keeps us learning, keeps us teachable. Spiritually, that's vital. It fosters a reliance on God's wisdom, encouraging obedience because we know our own view is incomplete.
Okay, what's next?
Second, see the sacred in nature. Job saw God everywhere. For us, maybe stuck behind screens, it's a call to reconnect, to find that awe again. Look at a sunset, a forest, the ocean. Really see it as reflecting the Creator. That sense of gratitude and wonder can profoundly shape our actions, encouraging obedience out of love and appreciation for God's work.
It's easy to lose that wonder in the day-to-day grind.
Very easy. Which leads to the third point. Respond to mystery with worship, not control. When life gets confusing, when suffering hits, our instinct is often to fix it, manage it, understand it completely.
Right, we want solutions. We want control.
We do. But Job models something different, acknowledging God's greatness, surrendering the need for all the answers, and choosing reverence. That can be far more transformative. It shifts us from striving to resting in God's power. And that deepens faith, allowing us to trust and obey even when the path isn't clear.
That's a profound shift. It's less about doing and more about being in his presence.
Exactly. And one final thought, connecting back to Job's interaction with his friends. Challenge empty words with truth. Job didn't just accept their shallow explanations for his suffering, he pushed back. It reminds us not to settle for platitudes or easy answers, especially in deep waters.
So seek genuine wisdom, not just comforting cliches.
Precisely. Seeking deeper truth reinforces faith because it's grounded in reality, even a complex reality, rather than illusion. It commits us to God's real wisdom, not just human attempts at it.
So wrapping this up, we've taken this deep dive into Job 26. We've seen this majestic picture of God's sovereignty, his power over everything from the earth's foundations to the cosmos. And it's a power really that's beyond our full grasp, which isn't meant to scare us, is it?
Not at all. It's meant to lead us to humility, to reverence.
And ultimately to a strengthening of our faith, encouraging that trust and obedience that comes from knowing he's truly in control. So the question for you to think about is this. Given how vast God's power truly is, where might you be trying to control things in your own life? Things that actually need a response of faith, perhaps reverence, or even just patience instead?